A long time ago in Egypt, a baby named Moses was placed in a basket and set afloat on the great Nile River. His mother prayed that God would keep him safe, and he did. Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him as a prince in the royal palace. Moses had everything, riches, power, and a life of luxury. But little did he know. He wasn't really an Egyptian, he was an Israelite. As Moses grew older, he began to notice something terrible. The Israelites, his people, were slaves. They worked day and night, building Pharaoh's cities under the scorching sun. Moses' heart was heavy. How could he live in a palace while his people suffered? One day, Moses saw an Egyptian hurting an Israelite. Filled with anger, he tried to defend his people. But when Pharaoh heard about it, Moses had to run for his life. He left behind the palace, the riches, and his royal life, and fled into the desert, where he would begin a whole new journey. Moses traveled far, far away, and finally reached a land called Midian. There, he stopped by a well to rest. While he sat near the water, he saw a group of young women trying to give their sheep a drink. But some rough shepherds came and tried to chase them away. Moses stood up bravely and helped the women by defending them and drawing water for their sheep. The women ran home and told their father, Jethro, what had happened. Jethro was so grateful that he invited Moses to stay with them. While living in Midian, Moses worked as a shepherd, caring for Jethro's flocks. Over time, he grew close to one of Jethro's daughters, Zipporah, and they got married. Moses had a new family, but little did he know, God had an even greater plan for him. One day, while watching his sheep, Moses saw something amazing. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. As he stepped closer, a mighty voice called out, "Moses! Moses!" It was God speaking to him. God told Moses, "Go back to Egypt. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go." Moses was afraid. "But God, what if he doesn't listen to me?" he asked. God promised, "I will be with you," and gave Moses a special staff that could do miracles. So Moses obeyed and returned to Egypt. Back in Egypt, Moses stood before Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh refused. So God sent 10 mighty plagues. Rivers turned to blood, frogs filled the land, darkness covered Egypt, and more. Finally, Pharaoh had enough. "Go!" he shouted. The Israelites were free. Moses led them out of Egypt, but soon Pharaoh changed his mind and sent his army after them. The Israelites were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, but Moses lifted his staff and God parted the waters. The people walked through on dry land. When they reached the other side, the waters crashed back and Pharaoh's army was gone. God had saved his people. Moses led the Israelites through the desert, where God gave them food from heaven and water from a rock. On Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, teaching his people how to live. Through many challenges, Moses trusted God and led his people toward the Promised Land. God had a special plan for Moses, just like he has a special plan for each of us. The end, or just the beginning. Want to hear more Bible adventures? Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more amazing stories.